Hey guys, welcome back. This is Mr. Weinkoff speaking with Embrace Tutoring and Educational Services at www.embracetutoring.com. Today we're going to be reviewing the SAT Math Practice Test 8, Math Section 3, and this video primarily is going to cover the detailed explanations of questions 1 through 10, and we will also offer another video that will cover more of a quick analysis. Question 1 states 3x plus x plus x plus x minus 3 minus 2 equals 7 plus x plus x. In the equation above, what is the value of x? So essentially, we are attempting to simplify and combine these like terms to solve for x overall. I can already see that on the left side of the equation, I'm going to have 6x. I'm going to combine these like terms here for minus 3 minus 2, which would give me minus 5. So here I have 6x minus 5 equals 7 plus 2x when combining those like terms. Now to make things easier, I'm going to attempt to keep things positive on both sides. So here I'm going to add 5 to both sides. That way I have 12 plus 2x equals my 6x. I'm going to subtract 2x now from both sides. And you can already tell that you're going to have 4x equals 12. Solve for x. I'm now going to divide both sides by 4 to isolate for x, and I end up getting x equals 3. Much of this you can realistically do in your head, but to show kind of the detailed work of everything laid out algebraically, I've done that for you here. Question 2 states, the graph above shows the distance traveled d in feet by products on a conveyor belt m minutes after the product is placed on the belt. So I see m is on my x-axis. I also see that d is on my y-axis. And this is going to be representative of a slope of being my rise over run. Which of the following equations correctly correlates d and m? So in order to correlate this, where this is y here, right, we're going to think of our slope-intercept form, which is classically the y equals mx plus b. And I want to attempt to figure out, well, what is my slope using my points here? And now I know that I begin at my origin, which is 0, 0. And I know let's pick this point here being the fact that it is 1 and 2. But to make things easier on you, I'm simply just going to do my rise over my run rather than my y2 minus my y1 equals my over my x2 minus my x1. What I mean by this is that I'm going to attempt to count it out. So if my slope is my rise going up 2 and my run going over 1 as I'm reading my graph from left to right, as I'm reading this left to right, then I can see that my slope here is going to go over 1 and I'm going to go up 2. So my slope is going to be a positive 2, meaning that I can now go back to my answer choices, and it's not going to be C, because this would be a slope of 1. It's not going to be B, because that's the inverse, or 1/2. It potentially could be A, or it could be D. Well, how do we figure out the last bit here? How do we figure out what this y-intercept would be? The simplest explanation to figure out what is the y-intercept is what is y when x equals 0. So when you plug in x equals 0, and if I were to look here when x equals 0, well, y also equals 0. So I know that my b essentially would be 0. This would be my y equals, and if I were to plug in 0, then my positive b or my y-intercept should be equal to b. So in this case, it's going to be 0 because I see here that this would be plus 0, which is what A is signifying. So A is the best possible answer for number 2. For question 3, I see the formula below is often used by project managers to compute E, the estimated time to complete a job, where O is the shortest completion time, P is the longest completion time, and M is the most likely completion time. Realistically, on test day, given the fact that I have a formula here, and I can quickly scan down and I see that I have P equals for each of my possible answer choices, I'm really not going to care too much about the narrative here. This most likely would be for future questions if they are combined in some way. And I can readily kind of skip this information to make it easier on you. And then you can say, okay, well, here I have a given equation and here I have P equals. So really what they're going to be asking me is what if I had to correctly solve for P in terms of. So I'm going to be manipulating this equation here in order to solve for P. So let's do that. Here's my expression E equals O plus 4m plus b over 6. I need to solve and isolate for p, so I need to remove this fraction initially. So I'm going to have my 6 multiplied by both sides, and the idea behind that is so that way these 6's cross out, and I remove my fraction form. This can also kind of be interpreted as cross multiplication. So now I have 6e equals O plus 4m plus p, and I want to solve and get p by itself. So by subtracting both of these to the other side of the expression, 6e minus O minus 4m equals p, this should be the available answer choice, or the best possible answer choice. So I'm going to slide back to my answers, and I see here that A is indeed my best possible answer choice. C and D are still within fraction form. B says negative 6e as if I had made an incorrect sign change, but I want to have a positive 6e, a negative O, and a negative 4m. So A is my best possible answer. Question 4 states, in the figure above, RT is equal to TU. So I know that this side here, RT, is going to be congruent to TU. What is the value of X? So let's quickly kind of scan what we have here. I see that I have a triangle SVU. I also see that I have a triangle RTU. And because of the fact that this is going to be isosceles, I know that U is also going to be equal to R, meaning that they have the same sides or the same length and a congruent angle here in terms of 114. And I know that R plus U plus T is going to equal to 180. So that would allow me to actually solve for R and U, which would give me the chance to kind of solve back using the angle S to solve for S, V, and U out of 180. And that seems to be the most efficient way of doing that. So let's set this up. R is going to be equivalent to my U. I know that triangle RTU is going to be equal to 180 altogether. And I know that angle T, right, angle T plus angle U plus angle R is going to equal 180. Well, if my angle U and my angle R are the same, we can just label those as 2x. And then this just becomes 114 plus 2x equals 180. If I subtract both sides by 114, subtract this side by 114, I then get 2x equals 66. I solve to isolate for x by itself, and I get x equals 33. So the angle for U is 33, and the angle for R is 33. Now, let's think back. Why did I end up doing this? What was the intention? Well, that's because now I can solve for S, V, and U being that separate triangle. So I'll put those in a different color so you guys can clearly see. So my S here is going to be so my triangle S, V, and U is also going to equal 180 degrees. And I know that angle S is going to be 31. I know that plus angle V, which I do not know yet, plus my angle U, which I now know is 33. This will equal 180 degrees. So if I were to take these and subtract them from 180, I could then theoretically solve for angle V. So my minus 31 and my minus 33, and if I were to take 180 minus 31 minus 33, that would give me my angle V. And 31 plus 33 is 64. So this is 180 minus 64, and that would give me 116. So my angle V here is going to be 116 of what I'm able to solve. And I was able to first solve for my R and my U. I then was able to then use the triangle SVU in order to solve for this triangle, but the whole idea was to be able to get this. So think about that. Think of the rule in terms of what is the relationship between angle X and angle V. Well, we know from our geometric principles that angle X plus angle V, because of the fact that it's on a straight line, is going to be 180 degrees, right? They're both here on one straight line. So these together are going to be 180 degrees. And we just determined angle V to be 116. And we actually just solved by subtracting something in order to get 116. So without using your calculator, this isn't even the calculator section, but without overthinking this, this is just 180 minus 116, which brings us back to x equals 64 degrees. So x equals 64 degrees is your best possible answer. I'm going to go and scan my answer choices. C is the best answer for number 4. Question 5 states, the width of a rectangular dance floor is W feet. The length of the floor is 6 feet longer than the width. Which of the following expresses the perimeter in feet of the dance floor in terms of W? Okay, so a few things we need to take away out of this is that the width is going to be W. And the relationship between width and length, according to this rectangle, is that the length is going to be the width plus 6, right? 6 feet longer than its width. And I also know, just from given arithmetic and mathematics, that perimeter is going to equal 2W plus 2 times my length. Or I can take this value here for my length, and I can simply plug that in order to solve which of the following expresses the perimeter in feet of the dance floor in terms of W. So I'm replacing my length here with the expression of how it relates to the W. And now I have P equals 2W plus 2 times my length, and I'll plug in my W plus 6. If I were to distribute this, I have 2W plus 12 plus my 2W equals my P. I can combine my like terms, and I end up getting perimeter equals 4W plus 12. And this should be my best possible answer, which is B. So 5 is going to be B. You may also draw the rectangle, and if you were to draw the rectangle, it would simply look like W plus 6 on one side, W plus 6 on the other, and then you will have W for your width and W for your width. So remember, perimeter is 2 times the length and 2 times the width, and them added together. So the perimeter is the combination of, or the sum of the combination of all of the sides. Okay, question 6 states, which of the following consists of the y-coordinates of all of the points that satisfy the system of inequalities above? And here I have a y for my inequality here. I do not have a y here. However, I see that the one relationship that both of these inequalities have is a 2x. So I'm going to try and work off of that 2x. I see that this expression here, where it's 2x is greater than 5, is possible for my answer choices, right? If I had like 2/5. But I also see that I have a 4 here, so I can kind of manipulate the equations as I see. And I want to try and get both of these to it kind of be the same expression in some way. So I'm actually going to subtract -1 on both sides of this. And the reason for me doing that is I'm attempting to get the same middle expression. So 2x minus 1 is going to be greater than 4. And whatever I do to one side of the inequality, I have to do to the other side of the inequality. So if I do 2x minus 1 is greater than 5 minus 1, then the equality remains true. Well, now I have 2x minus 1 is greater than 4, but if you remember previously, I had a y is greater than 2x minus 1. Well, this is my complete equality or inequality, so I can have y is greater than 4. Some of you may do the substitution method, which are more than welcome to do that, but I'm attempting to simply relate these inequalities together by finding the middle value. So y is greater than 4 satisfies the inequality for problem number 6. Problem number 7 is, what is the solution set of the equation above? I see here that I have the radical of 2x plus 6 plus 4 equals x plus 3. Well, using my answer choices, I'm going to attempt to plug these in because there's really no fraction, and this is kind of fairly simplistic. If I can utilize my answer choices wisely, rather than having to consistently kind of solve through. And I probably either want to start with 5 or -1. And the reason being is because if I test 5 and if 5 doesn't work, then -1 is the only possible answer. If I test -1 and -1 doesn't work, then 5 is the only possible answer. So most likely I will end up having to test them both, but I'm going to definitely start with either 5 or -1. And I'll start with, let's say I start with 5. So here I have 2 times 5 plus 6, and this is all over the same radical, plus 4 equals 5 plus 3. So I'm attempting to solve for 8, and I have 2 times 5 plus 6, which is 16, and the square root of 16 plus 4, square root of 16 is 4, so 4 plus 4 does equal 8, and you're good to go. You know that 5 does work, so these answer choices are good, and that I will no longer just be A. Okay, now let's try and test -1. So here I have the radical of 2 times -1 plus 6 all over the radical plus 4 equals -1 plus 3. -1 plus 3 is 2 equals plus 4. Well, 2 times -1 is going to be -2 plus 6 is 4. So I would have my radical 4. So radical 4 is going to give me 2. And plus 4 is, and I'm supposed to be equaling this to 2, but 6 does not equal 2. So -1 will not work. Because -1 will not work, I can immediately eliminate the C, the A, and B is my best possible answer for question 7. Question 8 shows me two different functions where f of x and g of x, and then it says which of the following expressions is equivalent to f of x over g of x for x is greater than 3. Now, a big hint, whenever you see an inequality and you see the language of following expressions is equivalent to, and you see variables up here within your given expressions or your answer or your questions, and you see variables within your answer choices, meaning that you have x's and y's available in both, and they're giving you an inequality to solve for, usually the best strategy to choose is choosing numbers. And choosing numbers is a simplified method of choosing a number that works for this expression, and then you choose that same number and plug it back into your possible answer choices. So let's do that. And the number that we're going to choose purposely is going to be x equals 4. And the reason for this is because the next number within the sequence of x is greater than 3 is x equals 4. If this expression said that x is less than 3, well, then we would choose x equals 2 in order to solve for this given expression. So let's plug this first into our expression. We'll then solve for that expression and then plug it back into our answer choices or use process elimination to see which one actually makes the most sense. So when we want to solve for f of 4 equals 4 to the third power minus 9 times 4, well, 4 to the third power is 64, minus 9 times 4 is 36, 64 minus 36 is 28, and if I had my g to the fourth power, then g to the fourth, g of 4 is going to be 4 squared minus 2 times 4 minus 3. Well, 4 squared is 16 minus 8 minus 3, and this value will then be 5. So here I have 28, and here I have 5, and the question is asking, what is f of x over g of x? Well, the f of x, or f of 4, over g of 4 is going to be 28 over 5. Now, I'm going to attempt to take a 4, since I plugged it here into my questions, or my functions, and now I'm going to take that same 4, I'm going to plug it down here, and I'm going to try and figure out, quickly using process elimination, which one of these probably makes the most sense. Well, I can do A and B in my head. I know that it's not A, because 1 is here in my numerator compared to my denominator, so I know it's not going to be A. I know that B is going to be 4 plus 3 is 7 over 4 plus 1, which is 5. So 7 over 5 also does not work. Well, when evaluating C and D, I'm probably going to use the addition one first to try. And the reason for that, because I'm looking for a larger numerator. Right? When it really comes down to it, 28 is much larger than 5, so I want this numerator to be a much larger number than my denominator. Well, if I plug 4 into 4 plus 3, I can already tell that when I distribute this, 4 plus 3 equals 7. 4 times 7 does give me 28. That is correct. And then my x plus 1, or my 4 plus 1, is going to be 28 over 5. So this is correct. This is the expression that solves, given my other expression when x is greater than 3. So D is the best possible answer choice for question 8. So when approaching question 8, circle D, check, and moving on. Question 9 states, in the xy plane, the graph of the equation above is a circle. So this appears to be an equation of a circle. Point P is on the circle and its coordinates 10 and -5. And so there's one particular point, but I can tell from this equation of a circle expression that I can already figure out what the center of the circle is going to be. And I'll show this to you in a separate expression. If PQ is a diameter of the circle, what are the coordinates of Q? Now, they're saying that PQ is the diameter of the circle, and I know that my diameter is going to be equal to 2 times my radius. I can actually figure out what my radius is going to be here from my equation of the circle line, which I will show you. And then I can figure out my one point here as well, my center of a circle, as well as my other point. So let's set this up. Now here is the line that is given to you for the x minus 6 to the second power plus parentheses y plus 5 squared equals 16. But really the way that this expression is traditionally drawn is using an h and a k. And here I have x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. So this 16 is representing your radius squared, and the h and the k are representing the 6 and the 5. And you'll really actually be able to see that this should be minus h, so this 6 should be a positive 6, and then this minus k should really be a minus 5. Now, what is the importance of the plus 6 and the minus 5, or the h and the k as they're written? Well, this 6 here is going to be my x point, or my x value at the center. So positive 6 is my x value, and my minus 5 is going to be my y point here at the center. And if I were to slide over in terms of the little graph that I've drawn here, I would be able to do my other point first, which is 10, -5. So here I have 10, here I have -5. So I'm going to count over 10 for my x and down 5 for my y. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, so here's my 10th. I'm going to now go down to -5, which looks like it's right here. And so here's my 10, here's my -5. Okay, and I'm now going to plot my center of the circle, which actually happens to be on the same y, right? It actually happens to be, so here's my 10, -5 going down, and my y -5 is going to be 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm going to slide down, and this is kind of a good approximation for what I have. Here's my 6, here's my -5, and this here, if I were to draw this, is going to be half of my diameter. So this is going to be my radius. To really kind of give you a better picture of what's happening is that this is your center of the circle, and this circle is going to go around from that center to various points. I just drew this arbitrarily, but if this is my radius, I want to solve for what is my diameter. And the way that I'm going to do this is that, well, if I know from 6 to 10 is going to be 4, well, that's right, that's going to be my radius. And I can also figure this out here. If this is 16, then I know that r squared equals 16, and I know that the square root of 16 is going to be 4. So I can figure out my radius regardless, even if I plotted this out. And here I have my 4, so I can count back knowing I'm on the same y. So if I'm a -5, this entire thing altogether is going to be my diameter. And I can just label these. P is going to be 10, -5. My Q is all the way over here, and this is my center. So it's asking for what is my point Q. Well, if I went from 4 here to my radius, I would simply just go back 4 to figure out my other radius. So if this is 6, then this is going to be 2, -5 in terms of my other coordinates. So let's see, let's slide back to my answer choices. It should be 2, -5 So A is going to be the best answer choice for question number 9. Question 10 states, a group of 202 people went on an overnight camping trip, taking 60 tents with them. So 60 tents in total, 202 people in total. Some of the tents held 2 people each, and the rest held 4 people each. So some tents held 2, some tents held 4. Okay. Assuming all the tents were filled to capacity and every person got to sleep in a tent, exactly how many of the tents were 2-person tents? Well, I'll need to somehow arbitrarily define like what's a 2-person tent and what's a 4-person tent. So I'm just going to use X and Y. And I know that each X is for a 2-person tent, and I know that each Y is going to be for a 4-person tent. And I know that the total amount of tents for X plus Y are going to be 60 because I brought 60 tents with me total. I also know that 2X plus my 4Y, which is the amount of people that can sleep in each tent, is going to be a total of 202 people. So this is going to be my people sleeping equation, and this is going to be my total tent equation. And obviously you can tell that I'm attempting to set up a system of kind of linear equations or system of equations problem. And it says exactly how many of the tents are 2-person tents. Well, I don't want to use substitution because on the SAT, doing elimination is far faster. And I also know that I'm attempting to solve for 2-person tents. And the way that I've defined this is X. And because I want to solve for my X, I want to somehow find, so solve for X by eliminating Y. And if I'm going to eliminate Y, then I want to make these equations similar, and I want to figure out how to either when I add the equations together or I subtract them, I'm going to get rid of this Y. And obviously I see here that I have a 4Y, so I'm most likely going to have to multiply this by 4 and then subtract the equations together. I'm going to distribute this 4 to be my 4x plus 4y equals, and don't forget to distribute the 4 to the 60. So this is going to be 4 times 60, which equals 240. And now I'm going to subtract out my 2x plus my 4y equals 202. And what I'll get from this by subtracting the entire equation is that my 4y minus my 4y cancel. That was the entire intention of me finding a way to balance out and find these 4y's. Once again, I'm trying to solve for x, so I want to just eliminate y rather than solve for y and plug back into x. So now I have 2x equals 240 minus 202, which is going to be 38. And when I were to isolate for x, right, divide by 2 on both sides, I'm going to get x equals 19. So the number of 2-person tents that I should have should be 19, and C is my best possible answer. C is the answer to number 10.